She lived to 110 years old. 110? Let that settle for a second. Most of us are exhausted at 40. We're popping supplements, Googling how to live longer, buying things off shelves we can't even pronounce. And here was this woman, this small, quiet woman from rural Turkey, still here at 110, still sharp, still herself. And when someone finally asked her, "What did you do? What was your secret?" She didn't mention a pharmacy, didn't name a supplement, didn't pull out a list of superfoods or a morning routine she'd read about in some magazine. She pointed to her kitchen, specifically to a simple bowl of homemade yogurt. That's it. That was the answer. And I know, that sounds like something a grandmother says right before she hands you a glass of warm milk and tells you everything is fine. But stay with me, because the more I looked into this, the more I understood why what she said actually makes sense. This isn't just a story about yogurt, it's a story about what happens when ordinary becomes extraordinary, just by showing up every single day. The woman behind the story. Her name was Şemsi Kılıç. She was from Kayseri, in rural Turkey. And when she celebrated her 110th birthday, reporters came. Of course they did, because 110 is not a number. People reach quietly. 110 demands an explanation. She gave them one. Homemade yogurt, hard work. That was her whole answer. I keep thinking about how simple that sounds. No dramatic revelation, no complicated regimen. Just those two things. And somehow that simplicity felt more honest than anything I've seen in a wellness ad. Because Şemsi Kılıç didn't live a protected life. She wasn't sheltered from hardship. She lived through wars. She lived through economic upheaval. She watched entire chapters of history open and close while she was still here, still waking up every morning, still making her yogurt. There's something profound about that, isn't there? The world kept changing, everything around her shifted and broke and rebuilt itself over and over again. But somewhere in her kitchen, this one habit remained. This one small, fermented, quietly powerful food just stayed. It was her constant. And I think that matters more than we give it credit for. In Turkey, and this is important context, yogurt isn't a side dish. It's not something you eat when you're trying to be healthy for January. It's woven into the culture. Daily meals, multiple forms, eaten plain, mixed into dishes, drunk as a cold beverage called ayran, stirred into soups. It's not a trend there. It never was. It's just food, real food, the kind people make at home with their own hands from ingredients they understand. Şemsi Kılıç grew up with that. She didn't choose yogurt because of a study. She chose it, if you can even call it a choice, because it was simply part of life. And maybe that's the whole lesson right there. Maybe the foods that help us most are the ones we stop overthinking and just eat, quietly, consistently, for decades. The reveal. So let me just say it clearly, because I think you came here for an honest answer. Her daily secret was homemade yogurt. Well, that's the thing, that's what she pointed to. But before I go any further, I want to be honest with you, because there are 1,000 videos out there that would take a story like this and turn it into something it's not. They'd tell you yogurt is magic, that it guarantees a century of life, that if you just eat 1 cup a day, disease can't touch you. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what the science says either. What I am saying is this. Yogurt is a food with real nutritional value, real, documented, studied, peer-reviewed nutritional value. And when you look at what's inside it and what happens in the body of someone who eats it regularly for decades, it starts to make a lot of sense why a woman who ate it every day for most of her life ended up being exceptional. It's not magic. The calcium, but it might be more important than most people think. Let me walk you through it. Why this isn't just an old family story. At first, this sounds like something you'd dismiss, an old saying, a family legend, the kind of story that gets repeated at dinners but never really taken seriously. But science gives us several reasons yogurt may genuinely support healthy aging. And I want to be careful here, because may support is doing important work in that sentence. Nutrition science is complicated, single foods rarely tell the whole story. But what I can tell you is what researchers have actually found, what the data suggests, and where the reasonable thinking leads. So let's start at the beginning. Yogurt is a fermented food. That matters. It's made by taking milk, real or simple milk, and introducing two specific bacterial cultures into it: Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus. Those two cultures go to work on the milk sugars and transform it. The texture changes, the flavor changes, the nutritional profile changes. What you end up with is something that carries protein, calcium, magnesium, B vitamins, including B12, and critically, live bacteria. Those live bacterial cultures are what separate yogurt from just drinking a glass of milk. And they're the part of the story that researchers have been paying closer and closer attention to in recent years. The gut, the foundation of everything. If you've been paying any attention to health research in the last decade, you've heard people talk about the gut microbiome. It sounds technical. It sounds like a buzzword. But what it means is surprisingly simple. Inside your body right now, there are trillions of bacteria. Most of them live in your digestive tract. And the balance of those bacteria, how many you have, how diverse they are, how healthy they are, appears to influence a staggering number of things. Digestion, obviously, but also inflammation, immune response, mental health, metabolism, even how your body ages. Probiotics are live microorganisms found in foods like yogurt and other fermented products. And when you eat them, they enter your gut and interact with the existing bacterial community there. Now, I'm not going to tell you that eating yogurt will magically fix your gut in a week. That's not how this works. What the research suggests is more gradual, more subtle, and honestly, more interesting. It's about diversity. So a gut microbiome that has a wide range of different bacterial strains tends to be more resilient, more functional. And regular consumption of fermented foods like yogurt, may help support and maintain that diversity over time. Healthy aging often starts in the gut. That's not a poetic metaphor. That's increasingly the scientific conversation. Researchers are finding connections between gut health and conditions associated with aging. Low-grade inflammation, metabolic disruption, immune decline. The gut is involved in so much of it. Şemsi Kılıç ate a homemade yogurt every day for decades. Her gut had a constant daily supply of live cultures. Not from a capsule, but from actual food her body knew how to process. That's not nothing. That might be quietly significant. The bones that carry you. Here's where the story gets personal for me. Because if you've ever watched someone you love get older, really watched it, you know what bone loss looks like. You know what it feels like to see someone shrink, to watch them move more carefully, to notice the hesitation before a step. Osteoporosis affects a staggering number of older adults, especially women. And it's not dramatic the way heart attacks are dramatic. It's slow, it's silent, and then one fall, one bad morning, and everything changes. Yogurt is a major calcium source. Not the only one, not a cure, but a real, meaningful, consistent one. Adults over 71 need around 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day. That number climbs with age because aging bodies become less efficient at absorbing and retaining calcium. The bone density that kept you upright and stable at 30 doesn't maintain itself. It requires effort, input, nutrition. Reviews of yogurt's role in healthy aging specifically mention it as a food that can contribute to bone and muscle support in older adults, precisely because it delivers calcium and protein together in one source. And protein matters here too. We'll get to that in a moment. But calcium without protein is a different conversation than calcium with protein. The combination is part of what makes dairy foods and yogurt specifically more useful than just taking a calcium supplement in isolation. Şemsi Kılıç, from what we know, stayed mobile, stayed functional, stayed present in her own body for over a century. I'm not saying yogurt did that alone. Hard work, she said. Movement, a life lived with physical purpose. But maybe the calcium helped carry her. The muscle nobody talks about. This part surprises people. When we talk about aging, we talk about hearts and bones and brains. We don't talk much about muscle, but we should. There's a condition called sarcopenia. It's the gradual loss of muscle mass that comes with age. It starts earlier than most people realize, as early as your 30s, and it accelerates over time. and its consequences are serious. Weakness, reduced mobility, increased fall risk, difficulty with ordinary daily tasks that once required no thought at all. Protein is one of the primary tools the body uses to maintain and rebuild muscle tissue. And as we age, getting enough protein becomes both more important and often more difficult, because appetite can decrease, food choices can narrow, and the body's ability to use dietary protein efficiently sometimes declines. Yogurt is a convenient, bioavailable protein source. That's not a small thing. Convenient and bioavailable together are actually a significant combination. It means the protein is there, it's accessible, and the body can use it. Reviews on healthy aging in older adults specifically identify yogurt as something that may contribute to bone and muscle support. Muscle and bone. Together, from one food. Maybe she didn't just live long. Maybe she stayed stronger longer. Maybe the difference between 110 and 80 wasn't only about what she avoided, it was about what she maintained. Her strength, her structure, the physical architecture of a body that kept going when others had stopped. Cursed. More than one job. There's something I find genuinely remarkable about yogurt as a food. Most things do one job, or two. They give you energy, or they provide a specific vitamin, or they support one system, and that's it. Yogurt does several things at once. Harvard's nutrition source describes it as a nutrient-dense food, meaning the nutritional value per calorie is high. You're not just getting one thing. You're getting protein, calcium, magnesium, vitamin B12, fatty acids, live cultures. That B12 detail matters more than it might seem. Vitamin B12 is essential for nerve function, red blood cell production, and cognitive health. And older adults, specifically, are at higher risk for B12 deficiency, not because they're not trying to eat well, but because the body's ability to absorb B12 from food changes with age. The mechanism that extracts B12 from food becomes less efficient, and dairy foods, including yogurt, are among the dietary sources that can contribute meaningfully to B12 intake. So you have a food that supports the gut, supports the bones, supports muscle maintenance, and may contribute to nutrient intake that becomes harder to get as you age. One food, multiple jobs, quiet, consistent, doing its work every single day without anyone noticing, that's not a miracle food. But it might be one of those things that helps more than people realize, precisely because it's not flashy enough to get the attention it deserves. The heart question. This is where I want to be careful, because this is where the science gets more nuanced and I don't want to oversell it. There are observational studies, large studies, long-term studies, studies that tracked thousands of people over many years that have found associations between regular yogurt consumption and things like better weight management, lower incidence of certain cardiovascular risk factors, and reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. Associations, not proof. This matters. When a researcher says two things are associated, they're saying, we observe that people who eat yogurt regularly tend to also have this other health outcome. What they're not saying is yogurt caused that outcome. Because the people eating yogurt regularly might also be doing other things differently, exercising more, eating more vegetables, avoiding other processed foods. The yogurt might be a marker of a broader dietary pattern, not the sole driver of the benefit. Harvard's nutrition source says it plainly. The epidemiological evidence here is limited but suggests some potential benefit. So I'll say the same. This is not a miracle food, but the evidence doesn't dismiss it either. It points towards something, and when you add up gut support, bone health, muscle preservation, nutrient density, and whatever the metabolic and cardiovascular signals are pointing to, the picture that forms is one of a food that may be doing quiet, steady, meaningful work in the body over a lifetime. Not magic, not a guarantee, but real. Enter Greek yogurt. At some point in the last couple of decades, Greek yogurt arrived in the conversation. And I mean that literally. It went from something found in specialty stores to something that now occupies entire refrigerator sections, which means it's worth understanding what actually makes it different and what that means for you. Greek yogurt is strained yogurt. That's the core difference. Regular yogurt is made, and then Greek yogurt takes that yogurt and strains it, removes the liquid whey, resulting in a thicker, denser product. That straining process concentrates the protein. Harvard Health puts the protein content of Greek-style yogurt at around 16 grams per serving, which is significantly higher than unstrained regular yogurt. For context, a regular yogurt might give you 8 to 10 grams of protein. Greek yogurt, because you've essentially removed a lot of the water and non-protein components, can deliver almost double that in the same volume. For someone focused on muscle preservation, protein intake as they age, or simply satiety, that difference is real and meaningful. So if Şemsi Kılıç's homemade yogurt happened to be thicker, more concentrated, closer to what we'd call Greek style today, the protein content of what she was eating daily might have been even more substantial than a standard modern serving. Think about that. Every morning, decades, high-protein fermented food from her own kitchen. No wonder she was strong. But Greek yogurt isn't automatically better. Here's where I want to slow down because this is important. Greek yogurt gets a lot of marketing attention, and some of that attention leads people to assume that if some yogurt is good, more Greek yogurt must be even better. That straining equals superior. That thicker equals healthier. Not necessarily. When yogurt is strained, or some of the calcium goes with the whey that's removed. Depending on the brand and the process, Greek yogurt can be lower in calcium than regular yogurt. Not dramatically, but measurably. And for someone specifically trying to support bone health, that's a detail worth knowing. Some water-soluble vitamins can also be reduced through the straining process, and then there's sugar. This is where commercial yogurt, both regular and Greek, starts to diverge from what Şemsi Kılıç was eating in her kitchen. Some flavored, sweetened yogurts, the ones marketed aggressively, the ones that come in bright packaging with flavors like strawberry cheesecake or peach cobbler, can carry anywhere from 20 to 25 grams of added sugar in a single 5-ounce container. 20 to 25 grams, that is a meaningful amount of sugar. And it changes the entire nutritional profile of what you're eating. It's not yogurt at that point, it's dessert with a yogurt base. The best yogurt is not the sweetest yogurt. It's usually the plainest one. That's not me being harsh. That's just what the labels show when you read them carefully. Şemsi Kılıç's yogurt was homemade. No added sugar, probably full fat. Definitely alive with cultures. Definitely not strawberry cheesecake flavored. The simplicity of it, that was part of the value. So what should you actually be eating? Let me make this practical, because I think that's what you came here for. If you want to add yogurt to your daily routine in a way that actually reflects what the research suggests and what a woman who lived to 110 actually ate. Start with plain. Unsweetened, plain, that's your foundation. Not vanilla, not honey flavored, not anything that's been sweetened before it reaches your spoon. Plain yogurt gives you the protein, the calcium, the live cultures, without the sugar load that undermines those benefits. Check for live cultures on the label. You're looking for the words live and active cultures. Some yogurts are pasteurized after culturing, which kills the bacteria. If you're eating yogurt partly because of its probiotic value, you want live cultures present at the time of eating. Greek yogurt if protein is a priority. If you're focused on muscle maintenance, satiety, or simply want more protein per serving, Greek-style plain unsweetened yogurt is a strong choice. Just be aware that calcium content may vary and check the label. Regular plain yogurt if you want a milder flavor and want to be sure of the calcium content. And read the label. Seriously. Ingredients, sugar content, protein content, calcium percentage. 30 seconds of reading before you put something in your cart can genuinely change what you're eating every day. The best version of this habit is the simplest one. A bowl of plain yogurt. Every day, like someone once did in a kitchen in rural Turkey. It was never just the yogurt. I want to come back to something she said. Homemade yogurt, hard work, both things. She said both. I think it's tempting to seize on the yogurt because it's specific, because it's actionable, because it gives us something to go buy at the store. And there's nothing wrong with that. The yogurt was real. The nutritional logic is real. But she didn't just say yogurt, she said hard work. A traditional lifestyle, a rural life, physical work, a connection to food that came from actually making it, with her hands, from milk, not from a factory. A relationship with eating that was rooted in consistency rather than trend chasing. This is what the Pulse article captures about her story, that the yogurt existed inside a larger context, a way of living where food was taken seriously not because someone told her it was a superfood, but because it was simply part of how life worked. Her real secret may not have been yogurt alone. It may have been the combination of a simple, fermented food, consistency, and a traditional way of being in the world. And then the thing that actually builds a long life longevity is rarely built by one dramatic decision. That's hard to sell. It doesn't make a good headline. It won't trend on social media. But it's the truth as far as I can tell. It's not one supplement, not one morning routine, not one dramatic moment where you decide to change everything and then do. It's usually built by ordinary habits repeated for decades. A bowl of yogurt every morning. The physical work of a life lived with intention. Food that you understand because you made it. Meals that are simple because simple means sustainable. That's the story of Şemsi Kılıç. She didn't choose longevity. She just lived in a specific way, grounded in specific habits. And those habits, compounded over a century, produced a woman who was still here at 110, still clear enough to tell a reporter about her yogurt. I find that incredibly moving. Because it means the thing we're looking for isn't complicated. It's not locked behind an expensive protocol or a personalized biometric tracking device. It's in your kitchen, in your daily choices, in the ordinary, unremarkable, quietly powerful decision to eat real food consistently and to keep showing up for the life in front of you. What we know. Let me bring this back together cleanly because I know we've covered a lot of ground. Şemsi Kılıç was 110 years old, from Kayseri in rural Turkey, and she credited two things for her long life: homemade yogurt and hard work. Yogurt is a fermented food made with live bacterial cultures, specifically Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus. It contains protein, calcium, magnesium, vitamin B12, and live cultures. Probiotics, which are the live microorganisms in yogurt and other fermented foods, may help support gut microbiome diversity. And a healthy gut environment is increasingly connected in research to a wide range of health outcomes: digestion, inflammation, immune function, and aspects of aging. Yogurt provides calcium that supports bone health and protein that supports muscle maintenance, both of which become more critical and more difficult to maintain as we get older. Reviews focused specifically on healthy aging in older adults identify yogurt as a food that may help with bone and muscle support. Greek yogurt, which is strained to remove whey, generally delivers more protein, around 16 grams per serving according to Harvard Health, though it may be slightly lower in calcium depending on the brand. The healthiest yogurt is almost always the plainest, unsweetened version. Flavored commercial yogurts can contain 20 to 25 grams of added sugar per serving, which undermines many of the nutritional benefits. And yogurt is not a guaranteed path to a long life. No single food is. But it is a nutrient-dense, practical, daily food with plausible benefits for aging that has been eaten consistently for centuries in cultures that tend to treat it as simply food, not medicine, not magic, just food, eaten every day for a long, long time. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Do you eat yogurt every day? If you do, plain, Greek, homemade, whatever your version is, I'd love to know. Tell me in the comments. And if you don't, maybe this is the conversation that changes that. What about your grandparents, your parents? Did they have a daily food habit like Şemsi Kılıç? Something they ate every single day for decades without calling it a health decision just because it was part of life? I'm genuinely curious because I think the stories we carry from the people who came before us, the quiet, ordinary habits they kept without fanfare, those might be worth paying closer attention to than we do. Plain yogurt or Greek yogurt? Let me know below. And if this story meant something to you today, share it with someone who needs a reminder that the most powerful choices we make are usually the ones that don't look powerful at all. Just ordinary, just daily, just a bowl of yogurt.